Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Namaskar. India's economic rise is inevitable, but a lot of it currently has to do with the success of India's massive vaccination drive. The World Bank Group President David Malpass congratulated Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on India's COVID-19 vaccination campaign and also thanked India for its international role in vaccine production and distribution. The World Bank has reaffirmed its strong commitment to India across the World Bank entities, including the International Finance Corporation and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So we'll be discussing this compelling endorsement of India's economic rise. First, the headlines. Heavy rains throw life out of gear in Kerala. More than 20 people dead in rain-related incidents. A red alert is issued as dams are overflowing. Prime Minister takes stock of the situation by talking to Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. The Union Home Minister also assures all possible help. Heavy rains predicted in Uttarakhand on Monday. A red alert has been issued by the IMD. Chief Minister Pushkar Dhami takes stock of the emergency preparedness. Char Dham Yatris have been advised to take all precautions. Heavy rains in Delhi and Uttar Pradesh, western Uttar Pradesh as well. Another terrorist attack in Kulgam. 2 non-Kashmiri laborers killed and 1 injured. Operation against the terrorists hiding in a forest in Poonch continues. The ADGP of Jammu zone has reached Poonch. The World Bank appreciates India's preparedness and management of COVID-19, including successful vaccination drive, appreciates India's global role in vaccine production and distribution, reaffirms commitment of all World Bank entities to partner with India. Direct flight from Delhi to Tirupati commences. The Civil Aviation Minister inaugurates the SpiceJet flight and says it will connect the political capital with the spiritual city. Every year, about 3.5 crore devotees visit Tirupati. Bangladesh's Home Minister Sadiuzzaman Khan Kamal assures the minorities that the people involved in the Durga Puja violence will be strictly punished. ISKCON devotees protest against the attack in Noakhali in Kolkata. The protest is in front of the Deputy High Commission of Bangladesh. In Europe, energy prices continue to cause alarm among European leaders. Natural gas prices have rocketed almost 600% this year. The storage levels may be insufficient for approaching winter. The EU is concerned that the situation is benefiting the gas-rich Russia. The T20 World Cup begins. 45 matches between 16 teams. Champion will be decided on November 14. The qualifier matches from October 17 to 22 and the main draw from October 23. But India will be playing their group match with Pakistan on the 24th of this month. Our top story: the Indian economy will be the fastest growing major economy of the world next year. Both the IMF and the World Bank, they have backed India's economic reforms and the growth potential that has been strengthened by the success of the largest vaccination drive of its kind. The World Bank President David Malpass has hailed India's vaccination drive and other measures during his interaction with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in Washington, D.C. Here's our report. The World Bank has found India's vaccination drive the stuff that needs global recognition and commendation. World Bank President David Malpass congratulated Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on India's COVID-19 vaccination drive. Malpass also lauded India's role in COVID vaccine production and distribution. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met Malpass at the World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Sunday. Complementing India's financial sector reforms, Malpass offered the World Bank's operational as well as discussion-based support. He reaffirmed the World Bank's strong commitment to India across all World Bank group entities, including the International Finance Corporation and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. It goes without saying that given India's contribution to global good, the World Bank is willing to increase its lending to India, making available more finance for development. Earlier this week, the IMF had said that the outlook for low-income developing countries had darkened. This is something that India can change.
The outlook for low-income developing countries has taken a turn for the worse due to worsening pandemic dynamics. Aggregate output for the advanced economy group is expected to regain its pre-pandemic trend path next year and exceeded by 0.9% in 2024. Now, looking ahead, vaccine manufacturers in high-income countries should support the expansion of regional production of COVID-19 vaccines in developing countries through financing and technology transfers.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman mentioned that the focus should be on technologies that need to be moved from lab to land and those that require targeted global research in the pursuit of low-carbon growth. She highlighted the importance of strengthening technology, infrastructure and financial sector reforms. While interacting with leading businessmen at the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, Nirmala Sitharaman highlighted India's reform agenda and accelerated growth potential, which was endorsed by the leading CEOs.
FedEx business in India is growing strong. We are very bullish on India. The very fact that we have a global air network puts us in a considerable position to be able to help move COVID-19 related material into India when it was needed. We operate out of Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru, 40 flights in and out per week, and this infrastructure proved very handy for that purpose. And we are looking forward. We are very bullish on where potential for India is, the fastest growing large economy and growing trade environment.
So I think India is on a great pathway and trajectory with its reforms, continuing reforms, and I can see great momentum. I'm particularly impressed by the production-linked incentives that have been put into place. I think they can make a big difference to the way that labor-intensive industries in India can develop. So I'm very hopeful that it's not just one reform, but the series of reforms that are continuing can keep guiding India on the trajectory.
Earlier this week, the International Monetary Fund had expressed confidence in India's economic outlook. The IMF retained India's growth projection at 8.3% for 2021 and 9.6% in 2022. India is projected to be the world's fastest growing economy of 2022. China is projected to grow at 8% in 2021 and 5.6% in 2022. Bureau Report, DD India. Well, so that brings us to In Focus tonight, and we are focusing on IMF and World Bank endorse India's recovery, and to discuss this we have with us Dr. Arvind Veermani, Chairman of eGrow Foundation and former Chief Economic Advisor, and Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, Senior Economic Journalist. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Dr. Veermani, you know, the World Bank and IMF, this kind of endorsement, does it directly bring investment flows into our country, or do you think we need to go out there and aggressively market ourselves?
Right. So let me start briefly with what they have said and what we have seen, which they've recognized. Firstly, after the lockdown, the fiscal and monetary policy, including the credit policy of the government in India, they have recognized was very good for India, that it was focused, it was targeted and suitable for our conditions, as against when everybody else was recommending that we go the route of the US or Europe, where large amounts of fiscal expenditures were pumped in. So that is the first thing, that the macro management was good. The second one was that we were probably the only or the most prominent country in the world to undertake widespread structural reform which had started just before the pandemic, but that continued right through the pandemic. And that will set the stage, a growth potential, I think you mentioned just now also, that raises the growth potential. So I think for the first time, the IMF, World Bank are beginning to recognize this. Third, coming directly to your question, there is still not enough recognition of the really transformative reforms. I call them Big Bang reforms, which match the 1991 reforms, assuming, of course, they are carried forward to completion. A lot of announcement, obviously the details like rules, etc., have to be worked out. But if they are completed as projected, then these are transformative reforms. So you are quite right. I think we still need to publicize them, to put the facts, just plain facts, before the investors, etc. And I have no doubt that once they understand what is happening, there will be a huge increase in FDI and other investment in the Indian economy.
Mr. Bhattacharjee, the finance minister was speaking largely when she was talking to industrialists in New York about the fintech businesses doing really well, and she talked largely about financial reforms in that sector. How significant is this? Is it understated? We are talking about marketing India aggressively. These reforms, in the fact that there are so many unicorns, she said, that are coming up in this sector, in the fintech sector.
That's right, Mark. One of the interesting things about this year's dialogue, which the finance minister had with at USA, and this is also with the IMF, the World Bank, the US Treasury Secretary. You notice that essentially India is not projecting that it is growing. There are constraints, and yet there is an opportunity. That narrative is not there anymore. Now it is clearly that we have cleared up most of the necessary things that are needed to ensure investments come in. So if you look at, for instance, what the finance minister spoke with US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, there isn't anything that India is being asked to do. India is now saying that, look, we have set up the stage, we have done these reforms, and now it's time for, if you want to participate in a good growth story, here is India, which the industrialists right now earlier in the program also talked about. So, it's not growing with constraints, but right now it is a question of, India is actually hitting the sweet spot. And that is, I think, a very important difference from the earlier positions where, there was an expect that India was trying to market itself. There was a however constraints coming along from international agencies, and there was a effort to find out a good middle path. That is not necessary anymore. It's tailwind only.
Yes, Dr. Veermani, we have heard in the past also that India was the sweet spot of the world economy. But the point is now that, sustaining 9.6% GDP, which is targeted for next year, at least that's what the IMF says, in 2022, the calendar year, India will grow at that percentage and will be the fastest growing major economy of the world. We have a massive infrastructure push. We have the infrastructure pipeline, we have Gati Shakti, all these things. To what extent, is this sector the one that's going to, if we get it right, sustain this kind of growth? I can't hear you, Dr. Veermani. Perhaps you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
There are two aspects. One is what are the likely drivers in the thing? Of course, the forecast, I think, may have missed a little bit there. I think it was 9.5 and 8.5 for the next year, 9.5 current. But that's okay. 8.5 is still very high. So
8.5 for this year, 9.5 for next year. I'm talking about next year, 2022. No. All right, okay, perhaps.
FY, anyway.
Okay,
FY.
FY.
I mean, there's dates people can check. The exact. Anyway, so one of the new drivers is the digital economy. India was lagging somewhat in the digital, digitizing the economy. But the pandemic has changed all that. Now we are probably, at least in terms of the change, In fact, their indices were showing India has had the biggest change in that digital space across the world. I think biggest or second biggest, actually.
Okay.
So, so the digital economy, we are going to be innovators. For example, in application of digital economy to social sectors like education, health, etc. You mentioned fintech at the beginning. Many other sectors. I think we have this huge accumulation of skills, from
Right.
people who worked and studied in the US, etc. So that is one of the drivers. Now, but sustaining growth at over 7%, even 7 to 8, which is my forecast for the next financial year, which till
Okay.
the World Bank or IMF was the highest forecast.
Right.
Forecast of anybody in India or anywhere else. But anyway, so sustaining that kind of thing will still require a few things, because we've had some problems in the pandemic, which we recognize. If you have time, we can discuss those, which will need to be addressed to sustain growth at 8% or over. So, which is why I'm still, in that 7 to 8% range for a sustained over a decade or so.
Mr. Bhattacharjee, the IMF chief economist was concerned about, the lower income developing countries. So to what extent, because we are coming out of the pandemic, and this is the thing that the World Bank has congratulated India for, the speed of the vaccination drive, the speed, scale, size. This is actually the end of, at the end of the day, this is what matters. So going forward, South-South cooperation, India perhaps, helping the other developing countries, and as a result of that, developing a lot more goodwill, and how does that affect the overall image and brand of India?
Essentially, vaccine diplomacy makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You export more vaccines, you sort of, that's an immediate and easy way to ensure that you add the goodwill. So there's no doubt about that. Also, the fact that the health is such a primary issue now, you'd expect that there'll be much more health-related travel across from southern countries, the less developed countries, towards India, which is a very huge market, which already was a very big market. The pandemic had sort of upset the flow. Now that flow, I suspect, will become extremely large, with people being aware of the possibilities of getting the treatment here, the cost advantage that it creates. And this, I think, is going to be a big boost. You can call it an infrastructure movement. You can call it a soft infrastructure movement. It checks all the boxes. And I suspect that this will be a very, very major part of the Indian economy going ahead for the next, for this decade. Absolutely, there's no doubt about that.
Dr. Veermani, about green technologies, that shift is extremely important, and India is making that shift. And here again, there is South-South cooperation, and another reason why the richer countries should be, helping with technology towards the global South, and India could be the medium. How would you see this particular segment, India with huge targets of renewable energy, 450 gigawatts, going forward, and India's growth fitted into this?
Right. So, so besides the digital, actually, in my, I think we discussed it once, this Vision 2050 document, where this green economy plays an important role. But we have to remember that when we made the change, about, let's say, 10 years ago, we were seen in the global context as obstructionists, that we were somehow resisting a green economy, world economy, etc. But now, with the PM Kupe initiative and this Solar Alliance, wholesale switch to solar and other renewable energy sources, certainly that thing has been turned around completely. Where at least joint leadership, I would say.
And with the problems that China is facing with coal and these other issues.
Etc. So yes, you are absolutely, that's a very good question. I think that's an area where South-South cooperation, in the context of your question, I hadn't really focused on that, but I think you're right that now perhaps India should take the lead or initiative in getting the South to work with India on that field. Of course, the problem you mentioned with respect to the West, that they had promised technology and funds, that is still under discussion. I don't think it's given up, but that's a little bit of a struggle which we will have to keep struggling. We are doing in the COP26, etc. But I think that's an interesting question, that perhaps while that is going on, we should turn to the South and engage them more on this issue.
Mr. Bhattacharjee, with regard to energy itself, moving away from fossil fuels, we can see that there is a huge spurt in gas prices as of now in the West because of fear of the winter shortage. And now these sort of things are disruptive to the market also, because people want to make short-term profits. The point is, countries like Russia can benefit. How does India, fit into a situation like this going forward, when we are looking long-term at, sustaining a high growth rate?
Advantage this time is that we don't import much of gas as a major part of our energy composition. It's still about 6 to 7%, which is the current gas composition, of which around 4%. So essentially, this winter's price rise is not that destructive for India in the gas economy. Now, with the advantage that we can see is that gas will be the bridging fuel for the years to come, which means that the government's recent efforts to ensure that there is more gas fields that open up, the licensing policy that has been done for bringing in fresh investments, those should now get the fill. Because that means that because we are now pushing in for gas expansion in city gas and commercial in gas. So all of those would be very, very dependent on how well we are able to marshal our gas economy. It's a good point this year that we will not be hit much by the gas rise. So that's an advantage,
we leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Arvind Veermani and Subrimala Bhattacharjee, for joining us on this interesting discussion on the World Bank and IMF endorsing India's growth story. Moving on then to our next story. Heavy rains have lashed many parts of Kerala, creating a flood-like situation in the state. Several dams are overflowing. Rescue and relief operations are underway on a war footing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to the Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan and expressed anguish over the loss of lives. He assured all possible assistance. The Kerala government has announced an excretion of 4 lakh rupees to the next of kin of those who have lost their lives.
Floods triggered by heavy rains have led to loss of life and property in southern state of Kerala and brought normal life to a halt. Kottayam and Idukki districts are worst affected. Rescue operations are underway by Indian Army and Navy in the affected areas.
There was extremely heavy rainfall up to 29 centimeters across our Kerala region, and we have issued the red alert also. Today it has reduced significantly.
Kottayam has been battered the most. The remote areas of the district have lost contact and dams are overflowing. Many villages have reported damage due to landslides in the state. At least 10 people have died in Kottaikal Taluka. 33 relief camps have been set up in the district. Along with the Army, the Southern Naval Command is also actively engaged in relief and rescue operations. Naval helicopters are also delivering food items to the needy people. The Pampa River is in spate at Pathanimthitta district and its water has inundated many houses. The Muvattapuzha River was also seen in spate at Ernakulam. At least 10 people lost their lives in Idukki district, while a red alert has been sounded as many dams are overflowing. Army personnel are engaged in rescue operation for missing persons in Kottayam. Massive efforts are underway in Kochi to evacuate trapped people through naval helicopters. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is keeping close eye on rain-related incidents in Kerala. He took to Twitter to express anguish over the loss of lives due to heavy rain and landslides in Kerala. Prime Minister extended his condolences to the bereaved families. Prime Minister also spoke to Kerala CM Pinarayi Vijayan and discussed the situation in the wake of heavy rains and landslides in the state. He said authorities are working on the ground to assess the injured and affected. In view of situation worsening due to heavy rain in the state, the government has issued an advisory for tourists not to travel at night for time being, and Subrimala devotees have been urged to cancel travel till 18th of October. The yatra will resume from 19th of October. On the other hand, National Disaster Response Force is engaged in rescue and relief operations in the affected areas including Malappuram, Idukki, Thrissur and Alappuzha. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has assured for all possible help to the state. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "We are continuously monitoring the situation in parts of Kerala in the wake of heavy rainfall and flooding. The central government will provide all possible support to help people in need. NDRF teams have already been sent to assess the rescue operations, praying for everyone's safety." Kerala government has announced an ex gratia of 4 lakh rupees to the next kin of those killed in rain-related incidents. Higher educational institutions in the state, which were to be opened from Monday, will remain closed for the time being, and examinations have also been postponed for the next 2 days. Bureau Report, DD India.
So to discuss this now, Kerala battles nature's fury, we have with us Dr. Mahapatra, who is the Director General of the India Meteorological Department, and Narendra Kumar Sengar is the Inspector General of the NDRF. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Dr. Mahapatra, the question that simply comes to mind is, are the monsoons over or are they staying on and on?
Monsoon is in withdrawal phase, but however, monsoon still exists over southern peninsula, and it is covering Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. Okay. And on this influence, low pressure area formed over Southeast Arabian Sea and another over the Bay of Bengal. And while the Bay of Bengal low pressure system moves towards west-northwest, crossing north coastal Andhra Pradesh and south Odisha coast, the Arabian Sea low pressure system moved southeastwards and towards Kerala coast. On 16th, it lay centered close to Kerala coast and caused heavy to very heavy rainfall activity. But however, today on 17th, this low pressure area has become less marked, or it is weakened. And therefore, the rainfall activity on 17th has reduced over Kerala, and it will further reduce on 18th. At the other end, the low pressure system which crossed Andhra Pradesh, now it is located over Telangana and adjoining Bidar area. It is moving northward. And it is interacting, after interacting with the Arabian Sea system, now it is interacting with the western disturbance, which is approaching the northwest India. So therefore, while the danger of the extremely heavy rainfall is over Kerala, there is danger of extremely heavy rainfall activity starting with from tonight till 19th morning over Uttarakhand and adjoining areas of Himachal.
So we'll come to Uttarakhand, but Mr. Sengar, the situation in Kerala is that we've been reporting that, you know, dams are overflowing, there's a threat of floods. What's the ground situation like? There is a loss of lives, over 20 people have lost their lives. So what's the kind of situation, you know, and the NDRF's role currently?
After we received the weather forecast from IMD in consultation with the government, we pre-positioned 6 teams in 6 different districts. Later, they reviewed the situation and requested for 5 more teams. So currently, total of 11 teams are deployed over 10 districts. And as reported already, total of 23 people, they have lost, unfortunately, their lives. 13 in Kottayam and 9 in Idukki in 2 landslide incident, and 1 person out because of drowning in Kozhikode districts. And our teams have been working in search and rescue operations in all the districts. And as there is yellow alert for tomorrow, and thereafter we believe that all the districts situation is going to be normal. So I hope that in next 48 to 72 hours, situation normalizes rapidly. So currently our teams coordination with other agencies, they are trying to do the best possible.
Indeed. Dr. Mahapatra, in Uttarakhand, so a red alert for tomorrow, but for how long? Is this short term? And, you know, what are the immediate threats or concerns that people should be having? Landslides, because it's a hilly area?
Yeah, just like Kerala, we have the landslide-prone areas in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. And basically, we are expecting extremely heavy rainfall activity over Uttarakhand for tomorrow. And activity will decrease day after tomorrow. That is, on 19th, activity will decrease, but still rainfall will continue. Heavy to very heavy rainfall we can expect. And tomorrow we can have extremely heavy rainfall, that is rainfall more than 20 centimeters. It is mainly because the warm, moist winds are entering towards West UP and Uttarakhand. It is being supported by the cold, dry winds in associated with western disturbances at the upper level. So this type of situation leads to very intense rainfall activity. And this intense rainfall activity will accentuate the already good rainfall activity what we have received in the monsoon season. So therefore, there is chance that it could lead to the landslides and also the inundation of low-lying areas. But however, we do not have any quantitative landslide early warning system in the country, but we give the impact-based forecast based on the landslide-prone areas and the expected rainfall activity. So impact-based forecast has been issued, and the most important day is tomorrow when we can expect these situations. But I just want to mention that this activity, which is now occurring over northwest India, covering most parts, including Delhi and NCR and East Rajasthan, West MP, West UP, it will have the maximum peak tomorrow. Thereafter, it will be shifting towards east. We can expect rainfall activity over UP and Bihar subsequently. We can have also heavy rainfall there. And under these, there is very strong easterly winds prevailing from Bay of Bengal across West Bengal, Jharkhand, Bihar, East UP towards Uttarakhand. And that will also bringing moisture from Bay of Bengal. And therefore, this rainfall activity, while it will maximum here, it is shifting and occurring heavy rainfall over eastern India till 20th. And during 19 to 21, there will be heavy to very heavy rainfall activity for northeastern states also.
So this is going on till 21, 4 or 5 days. Mr. Sengar, in that light, then what what preparations have the NDRF done in terms of preparedness for the, in terms of Uttarakhand at least? Let's begin.
Based on weather forecast by MD and also based on consultation with the state government, just now Honorable Chief Minister reviewed in which representative of NDRF was present. We have already mobilized 10 teams in 2 different regions, that is Humayun and Garhwal. 3 locations each as of now we have covered, 3 in Humayun and 3 in Garhwal. And we are mobilizing some more teams and kept other teams also in readiness in different parts of the country in case need be, they could be mobilized by airlifting. So as of now, we are focusing on Rudraprayag, Uttarkasi, Pithoragarh, Bageshwar. These are the places which are likely to be most affected.
Mr. Mahapatra, the rains in the south, how long are they likely to go on? I mean, you said that they've already become much less in Kerala, but there are reports also that it's raining heavily in Maharashtra. So, I mean, is this system likely to go on for a little few more days beyond the 20th?
No, this the other low pressure system which crossed Andhra and adjoining Odisha coast, it is now located on Telangana and Bidar. In association today, it is raining over Maharashtra, Telangana, parts of Karnataka, and also adjoining Madhya Pradesh. And that cloud mass associated system is also prevailing up to northwest India.
It's the same system that's coming to northwest India, okay.
Yes, so by tomorrow, the southern peninsula, including Maharashtra, will be cleared from this cloud and intensity will reduce. But northwest India, especially the West MP, West UP, Uttarakhand, adjoining Himachal Pradesh, will have the maximum activity tomorrow. And mostly, Uttarakhand is the target because extreme rainfall activity we are expecting over Uttarakhand.
It rained heavily in Delhi as well today, Dr. Mahapatra. So, I mean, what's the forecast like for tomorrow and the next few days? Is the same? The rains in Uttarakhand, are they going to be affecting Delhi as well?
Yeah, for Delhi also, we expected maximum intensity for today. Tomorrow, there is expectation of rainfall over Delhi and NCR, but intensity will decrease.
Okay. Mr. Sengar, there's in Uttarakhand there are the Chardham Yatras as well. To what extent, is the NDRF involved with, giving them some assistance, because they've been told to take all precautions? What does that actually imply?
Basically, it will amount to evacuation of people from vulnerable areas, which are, say, on steep slopes or at unstable places. So our people are there, and not only NDRF, but there are other agencies also in much remoter areas like ITBP, SSB, even Army. They also have been sensitized, and whichever force is nearby, that is helping all these Chardham Yatris to be evacuated to safer places.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahapatra and Mr. Sengar, for joining us in this important discussion. Moving on then to our next story. In Uttarakhand, the Chief Minister, Pushkar Dhami, took stock of the situation in the state with the Chief Secretary. The Chief Minister directed the police, the SDRF and other concerned personnel to be on high alert at the sensitive places. He said that special care should be taken of the Chardham Yatra route and advised the devotees to stay at safe locations. Meanwhile, all schools in Chamoli will remain closed on Monday in wake of heavy rain warnings. All trekking, camping, mountaineering groups are advised not to visit the forest areas of Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve for the next 2 days.
हमने सवेरे से ही आज पूरी तैयारी कर रखी है, सभी जगह अलर्ट जारी कर दिए हैं, सभी टीएम, एसएसपी, मुख्य सचिव से पूरी बात पहले ही सवेरे हो चुकी है हमारी, कि उन्होंने सभी लोगों से अलग अलग तरीके से बात कर ली और मैंने स्वयं भी बात करी है। हमने सभी यात्रियों से भी जो चारधाम यात्रा में बड़ी संख्या में आए हैं, उनसे भी हमने अनुरोध किया है कि चूँकि 18 और 19 2 दिन जो है भारी अलर्ट है, ज़्यादा हैवी रेन होने की आवश्यकता है, तो वो अभी 1-2 दिन यात्रा को टाल दें या यात्रा न करें, क्योंकि उनके उसके लिए है, उनके आगे के बचाव के लिए है, सुरक्षा के लिए है।
The IMD has issued a new rainfall alert on Sunday, where it sounded a red alert for Uttarakhand. It has also issued an orange alert for Himachal Pradesh, and along with Western UP, the IMD has also issued a yellow alert for Delhi, Punjab, Haryana and Chandigarh. In its All India Weather Bulletin, the IMD said that the current weather conditions are due to a western disturbance that lies over Afghanistan and neighborhood and is interacting with the Easterlies at lower levels from the Bay of Bengal. It is very likely to continue during the next 2 to 3 days. News about COVID. India continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, and in the last 24 hours, the new COVID cases have declined to 14,146 in the country. It's the lowest in 229 days. 19,788 patients have recovered from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. And this has increased the total recoveries to over 3,34,000. India's recovery is the highest since March of 2020. It's currently at 98.10. The active cases account for less than 1% of the total cases. In its lowest since 2020, and it's now at 0.57%. The Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur inaugurated 4 roads worth 10 crore rupees built under the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana in Hamirpur in Himachal Pradesh. He laid the foundation stone of a cow shelter in Gasota. So the Information and Broadcasting Minister offered prayers at the Gasoteshwar Mahadev temple. While addressing the public gathering, he said that the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana will enhance development of villages, and the construction of cow shelters will help the destitute animals in the area.
प्रधानमंत्री ग्रामीण सड़क योजना का जो शिलान्यास और उद्घाटन आज हुआ है, और गसोता महादेव में जहां पर गौ सदन बनाने के लिए 53 लाख रुपए खर्च होंगे, 3 शेड यहां पर बनेंगे। सड़क विकास के कई द्वार खोलती है और मेरा व्यक्तिगत रूप से मानना है, हमीरपुर जिला में पहले भी हर गांव को सड़क से जोड़ने का जो प्रयास अटल जी और प्रेम कुमार धूमल जी के समय हुआ, वो अब एक बार फिर उसमें गति दी जा रही है। जब मोदी जी की सरकार केंद्र में बनी है, तो उसके माध्यम से भी 100 करोड़ रुपए प्रधानमंत्री ग्रामीण सड़क योजना में हिमाचल प्रदेश में खर्च हो रहे हैं।
The Union Minister also targeted the Congress over the delay in its choosing its president. He added that the Congress party is unable to get past the Gandhi circle.
कल भी जो कांग्रेस वर्किंग कमेटी की बैठक हुई उसमें भी 1 साल और का समय डाल दिया गया। तो क्या कांग्रेस में इस लायक कोई भी नहीं जिसको कांग्रेस का राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष बनाया जा सके? आखिर क्या डर कांग्रेस को सता रहा है? इसका जवाब तो कांग्रेस को देना है।
The Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting and Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, Dr. L. Murugan, is on a 2-day visit to Karnataka. He visited an ice plant in Mangalore and issued a sanction order for beneficiaries under the refrigerated vehicle and insulated vehicle components of the PMMSY scheme. And speaking at this event, he said that the various schemes that are being brought in by the government, they are promoting fisheries. Efforts are also being made to provide employment to women in this sector.
Fishing activities now is boosted. So our main motto, our fishery is in the seaweed. Our fisher women also has to be get employment as well as economic empowerment. That is why this we are taking forward to the seaweed cultivation also. So in Karnataka they are also identifying the places, and here inland fisheries also we are encouraging. So under our dynamic leader Sri Narendra Modi ji, our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, in this department we are taking forward.
Terrorists have once again carried out a cowardly attack in Jammu and Kashmir targeting civilians. They have shot dead 2 non-local laborers in Kulgam area of South Kashmir. One of the persons was also injured. Another person was injured in this terrorist attack. The police, they have cordoned off the entire area and all activities have been monitored. In the recent times, it's a second attack on non-locals. Earlier, 2 non-locals were shot dead by terrorists in separate incidents in Srinagar and Pulwama districts. The Bharatiya Janata Party has begun the Samajik Sampark campaign. This is in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. Under this campaign, the party representatives connect with the people by taking the mantra of self-reliant India to them. So the party is organizing 27 meetings, and that begins from today till the 31st of October. The party representatives will deliberate on government public welfare schemes and historic decisions under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the state BJP government led by the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. On the occasion, Yogi Adityanath addressed the Pichda Varg conference in Lucknow, and the Chief Minister said that Uttar Pradesh has been through a sea change since 2017. He said that the people in Uttar Pradesh have got houses of their own, sanitation in rural areas has improved with the construction of toilets, and in terms of electricity, all of the houses have been electrified since 2017.
2017 के पहले उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर आवास गरीबों को नहीं बन रहे थे। आज हम लोग ग्रामीण और शहरी क्षेत्र में 42 लाख लोगों की आवास बना रहे हैं। उनको प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना, मुख्यमंत्री आवास योजना के साथ जोड़ रहे हैं। 2017 के पहले स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के अंतर्गत गरीबों के शौचालय नहीं बन पा रहे थे। आज 2 करोड़ 61 लाख गरीबों के शौचालय बनाने के बाद अब ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में सामुदायिक शौचालयों के निर्माण का कार्य भी हो रहा है। पहले बिजली 4 जनपदों में मिलती थी, 75 जनपदों में 4 जनपद में बिजली, बाकी 71 जनपद अंधेरे में रहते थे। आज भाइयों बहनों, आपने देखा होगा कोयला का संकट वर्तमान में आया है। जो कोयले की खदान थी वहां पानी भर गया भारी बरसात के कारण, लेकिन तब भी 1 यूनिट बिजली हमें 22 रुपए की पड़ रही, तब भी हम बिजली खरीद रहे हैं।
And speaking at the event, the Chief Minister said that this year over 9 lakh diyas will be lit in Ayodhya on the occasion of Deepavali.
आज आप देखते होंगे चीन की मूर्तियां आनी बंद हो गई, अब दीपावली के दीपक भी यहीं बनने लग गए हैं। मुझे याद है 2017 में जब हमें दीपोत्सव का कार्यक्रम अयोध्या में करना था, तो दीपोत्सव के उस कार्यक्रम के लिए हमें 51,000 दीपक नहीं मिल पा रहे थे। और इस बार हम 9 लाख दीपक जलाएंगे अयोध्या में मिट्टी के। हम ग्रामीण और शहरी क्षेत्र में अब तक 42 लाख परिवारों को एक आवास दे चुके हैं, 42 लाख से अधिक परिवारों को। और हम लोगों ने कहा शहरी क्षेत्र में जिन 9 लाख लोगों का गृह प्रवेश हो गया है, उन 9 लाख परिवारों की तरफ से एक दीपक हम लोग अयोध्या में इस बार जलाएंगे।
Exemplary punishment for people involved in violent incidents in Bangladesh. This is what their Home Minister has said. Well, the Home Minister of Bangladesh, Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal, has said that the violence in Kumilla and other places of Bangladesh during the Durga Puja was instigated by a third party to destabilize the country. He said exemplary punishment will be given to those who were involved in the incident. Social organizations, cultural groups, eminent citizens cutting across communities have condemned the recent incidents of the attack of the minority Hindu community there in Bangladesh. A number of protests have taken place in the country demanding stern action against the perpetrators of the violence. 31 eminent literary personalities and eminent persons issued a statement in Dhaka on Saturday condemning these incidents. The social media platforms were also flooded with condemnation of the incident and a demand for punishment of the perpetrators. Violent incidents they had taken place across several places in Bangladesh during the last 3 days of Durga Puja after an alleged incident of desecration of the holy book was reported in Kumilla. And at least 6 people were killed in violent incidents and scores of houses were attacked, temples vandalized in the country during this period. Other international news, well, locals remembered the murdered British lawmaker David Ames. This is during a vigil on Saturday night, the day after he was stabbed to death while holding a surgery. Now, a surgery is a process of one-to-one meetings with voters, open to whoever turns up. The 69-year-old Ames was knifed repeatedly in the attack at around midday on Friday in Leigh-on-Sea, which is east of London, during a meeting with constituents in a church. The mourners described him as a genuine, caring and compassionate man as they lit candles and paid tribute to the politician. The attack on David Ames from Johnson's Conservative Party comes 5 years after the murder of Joe Cox, a lawmaker from the opposition Labour Party, and has prompted a review now of security of elected politicians. So, police have arrested a 25-year-old British man at the scene on suspicion of murder, but the police have said that it's believed that the man acted alone. And in a statement early on Saturday, the police said that the early investigation had revealed a potential motivation linked to Islamist extremism. Later on Saturday, the police said that they were granted a warrant to detain the man until Friday before they have to decide whether to charge him. In Europe, the energy prices have caused an alarm among European leaders and have sent shivers through global markets in the first weeks of October, raising concerns of a winter fuel crisis that could play into the hands of the gas-rich Russia. The natural gas prices have skyrocketed almost 600% this year on worries that the current low storage levels will be insufficient for the winter. On the other hand, natural gas futures recently hit 12-year highs in the United States. The European Commission published a toolbox of measures to tackle surging energy prices. Germany's energy firm E.ON has temporarily suspended new natural gas supply contracts for residential customers. The German government, however, says that Germany does not have any supply shortages. But the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, has said on Wednesday that Russia was boosting gas supplies to Europe to stabilize the market. The Russian gas company Gazprom is pumping natural gas into underground storage facilities in Russia as well. Gazprom says that this week they've said that they are going to prioritize their home market over export ahead of the winter. So some EU parliamentarians, they have alleged that Gazprom has not stepped up these gas supplies to try to force a swift approval of the Nord Stream 2, the newly built pipeline that sends Russian gas to Germany. The United States and some European nations oppose this project, saying that it will make the EU even more dependent on Russian fuel. But this uncertainty has hit global equity markets and bonds in Europe, and energy prices have topped the European Union's political agenda. Lava continues to stream down the slopes of the Cumbre Vieja volcano on Spain's La Palma Island. This happened on Sunday as well, 4 weeks since its eruption had begun. And street cleaners, they were busy on Sunday as well, trying to remove accumulated ash from the streets. The locals were trying to keep their businesses clean by constantly wiping tables and sweeping the floors. Streams of lava have already laid waste nearly 600 hectares of land, and have also destroyed about 1,500 houses, other buildings, including a cement plant that gave off toxic fumes. This also happened earlier this week. The flow has also devoured banana and avocado plantations, which are vital to the island's economy. The president of the Canary Islands, Angel Torres, that's the name of the president, said that there was no immediate end in sight to the volcanic eruption, citing the view of scientists. There were 42 seismic movements in the island on Sunday, and the largest was measured at 4.3 on the Richter scale. This is according to the Spanish National Geographical Institute. And a day before Greece was set to light the Olympic flame for the Beijing Winter Olympics, Tibetan and Hong Kong activists protested on Greece's Acropolis on Sunday, alleging human rights violations by China. The two protesters, 18-year-old Tibetan student Tesela Dzogtsang and the 22-year-old Hong Kong exiled activist Joey Sui, they climbed onto scaffolding in front of the Propylaea temple, the gateway of the Acropolis, holding up a Tibetan flag and also a sign reading "Free Hong Kong Revolution" before being detained by police and security guards. The activists, members of the No Beijing 2022 campaign, which calls for International Olympic Committee to rescind its decision to host the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, chanted "Boycott Beijing 2022, Free Tibet." And Beijing is set to host these Winter Olympics in February, but the IOC has faced criticism over its decision to award the country the Games in light of China's human rights record. The human rights activists have also called for athletes to boycott the Winter Olympics. Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world since the start of the pandemic, is set to remove some of those restrictions, allowing people to come out of their houses, and this is going to be from October 22. It's starting on October the 22nd. So Australians, the officials there have said on Sunday that restrictions in Melbourne, they were set to lift this week. Melbourne is the world's most locked down city, clocking nearly 9 months under hard stay-at-home orders for the city's 5 million people. The coronavirus cases were rising in Victoria State, of which Melbourne is the capital. The double vaccination rate for the population is set to reach about 70% this week, which is giving them the confidence to ease the restrictions. Australia was once considered the champion of COVID-0 strategy in managing the pandemic, and it has been moving now towards living with this virus through extensive vaccinations. But the Delta variant has proved to be difficult to curb for them. After wrapping up production of the first movie in space, a Russian film crew and cosmonaut bid farewell to the Expedition 65 crew at the International Space Station on Saturday and took the Soyuz MS-18 spacecraft back to Earth. A landing site for a Russian Soyuz capsule in Kazakhstan turned into a movie set early on Sunday, following the return of a Russian film crew from the International Space Station. A 3-member crew of Russian actress Yulia Peresild, movie director Klim Shipenko and cosmonaut Oleg Novitsky bid farewell to the Expedition 65 crew at the International Space Station on Saturday. Peresild and Shipenko, they spent 12 days on board filming scenes for their movie, which is called The Challenge. And Peresild plays, in fact, a doctor who travels to the space station to save a cosmonaut's life. The crew continued to shoot additional scenes, in fact, for the movie shortly after landing. And if completed successfully, this project, in fact, is another race where Russia has beaten the United States. And this is in the chapter of the space race of movie making. So last year, NASA had announced plans for a Hollywood star Tom Cruise to blast off on the SpaceX rocket for a yet-to-be-named film. The great lockdown of 2020 has resulted in a huge backlog of work for film and television producers, and this has led to demands that actors and crew work overtime to fill the backlog. But that's easier said than done, because the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees is at loggerheads with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers in the United States. They've, however, reached some sort of a truce. Here are the details.
A union that represents about 60,000 behind-the-scenes workers in film and television reached a tentative deal with producers on Saturday, averting a strike that threatened to cause widespread disruption in Hollywood, negotiators said. The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which includes camera operators, makeup artists, sound technicians and others, said negotiators agreed to a new 3-year contract. Shutdowns from the COVID-19 pandemic had caused a production backlog that led to crews working up to 14 hours a day to feed programming to streaming services. The union had threatened to strike starting Monday if it was unable to reach an agreement with the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers. A strike would have shut down film and television production around the United States in the biggest stoppage since the 2007-8 strike by Hollywood screenwriters. It would have hit a wide range of media companies including Netflix, Walt Disney Company and Comcast Corporation. IATSE was seeking to reduce working hours and raise the pay of members who work on shows for streaming platforms, where lower rates were set 10 years ago when online video was in its infancy. IATSE, in its statement, said the proposed contract addresses those issues, including rest periods, meal breaks, a living wage for those on the bottom of the pay scale, and significant increase in the compensation to be paid by new media companies. The new labor agreement is subject to approval by IATSE's membership. Bureau Report, DD India.
The T20 Cricket World Cup has finally begun. The last edition was way back in 2016. 16 teams will be competing for the coveted title, and fans are waiting with bated breath for the biggest clash between rivals India and Pakistan, scheduled on the 24th of October.
Cricket fans wait for an ICC cricket tournament with an India-Pakistan clash has finally ended. ICC T20 World Cup, the biggest competition of cricket's shortest format of T20, has begun. In its 7th edition of T20 World Cup, the tournament will be played in UAE and Oman from 17th of October to 14th of November. The competition that was earlier scheduled to be held in India was later shifted to UAE and Oman due to COVID-19 pandemic. In its 2021 edition, 45 matches will be played between 16 teams in the tournament across 3 phases. Qualifying matches will be played in the preliminary round. In this round, matches will be played between 8 teams, where 2 groups of 4 teams have been formed. Sri Lanka, Ireland, Netherlands and Namibia have been placed in Group A, whereas Bangladesh, Scotland, Papua New Guinea and Oman have been put in Group B. The top 2 teams from both these groups will qualify for the Super 12 stage. In Super 12, Group 1 includes Australia, defending world champion West Indies, South Africa and ODI world champion Team England, along with 2 qualifier teams. On the other hand, India, Pakistan, New Zealand and Afghanistan have been put in Group 2 along with 2 qualifier teams. In Super 12, all the teams have to play 5 matches each. The top 2 teams will advance to the semi-finals. Starting 23rd of October, the matches under round-robin format of the 12 top teams will begin. And
that's all we have in News Night tonight. Thanks very much for being with us. Namaskar.
as